Hello there, glad you tuned in again. Today I want to take a sort of different approach and talk a little more about business and entrepreneurship. I recently published this blog post, actually the day before yesterday, The Ultimate Guide to Starting a Business, Insights Worth a Dual Degree. I know, like, what the fuck, how can I even pretend that this is worth like a bachelor's or a master's degree? Of course, the title is a little bit clickbaity because I want people to actually start reading, but the insights I gathered here are accumulated throughout the last 5-6 years by multiple public figures, for example, Tim Ferriss, Seth Godin, Chris Williamson, just to name a few. And I gathered it, put it down concisely in this blog post, and erased some bits that I found repetitive or not quite necessary to include. But I figured, well, why not do this video to maybe add some additional information or some footnotes if something comes up while going through it again. And I promise you, it's definitely worth staying until the end because you will learn a bunch of new things you've never heard before. Even if you're like just starting out on your entrepreneurship journey or your side hustle journey, or if you're looking for inspiration, or if you're a seasoned entrepreneur already, I think there will be some snippets in here that you will find interesting and can probably implement into your own personal situation. So let's go through it again. I mentioned here that there is this ebook I offer on also this topic, but also in general on the world order, why things are looking kind of bleak at the moment, why people are losing hope. And there's this feeling around us where we sort of finally want something to happen so we have clarity, but there isn't really this thing that we anticipate happening. There are just like these small conflicts all throughout the world that are, well, gaining importance and also interconnectedness with each other, but there isn't this one event like, for example, COVID 4 years ago, where it hits us just like, okay, that's how it's gonna be for the next years. Now I can sort of, plan ahead a little, but it's just like uncertainty all the time. And I go through this and how we can handle it in a more efficient way and more fulfilling way in my free ebook. You can get it on gracefulglide.com. But for now, let's just go through the blog post. Successful people are obsessed with solving problems. There are pretty much three characteristics of successful people. First, a devastating fear of being insufficient. Second, a superiority complex. Third, a laser-sharp focus. Achieving this balance is incredibly difficult and I believe only manageable if you know yourself well. As you can imagine, the first one and the second one are kind of contrary to each other because, well, you on the one hand think you are not worth or good enough to achieve certain things, but on the other hand, you are so convinced that you are better than the average person, that you're destined for great. And it's this balance that we strive for, or successful people often strive for. It's this duality. For example, also Elon Musk, I will come to speak about him later in the video. He had this mother who nurtured him in many beneficial ways, and then this father figure who was sort of the antagonist in his family life and who always pressured him to do certain stuffs or treated him badly. And, well, this sort of formed him as a person, and he knew which side he had to nurture to achieve the things he wanted to achieve. It's always like, okay, choosing your enemies wisely. And he chose his father, and, well, he didn't really choose his father chose him, sort of, but he didn't feel suppressed or something. He used basically the negative attitude of his father to turn it into something more meaningful for him personally. And yeah, I think being adaptable is like a superpower in today's time. Same with having patience, for example. At the same time, these people have a mission they pursue relentlessly. You have to remain adaptable and open and develop confidence in your own taste. more about developing your own taste later on. No authority can describe or teach how entrepreneurship works. It is driven by innovation and the ability to recognize secrets or values in things that no one else suspects and expects. Sam Walton started opening stores in small towns because big cities were already full. Kmart outperformed Walmart in the first years because they relied on logic. Sam Walton relied on controlled emotions. And now his poorest son is worth 50 billion US dollars. Jeff Bezos started with books. He found the smallest viable audience available that needed help or a solution and just started testing. The world is a very malleable place. If you know what you want and you go for it with maximum energy and drive and passion, the world will often reconfigure itself around you much more quickly and easily than you would think. Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. Once you learn that, you will never be the same again. This last quote is by Steve Jobs, I believe, and the world is a very malleable place is by tech mogul Mark Andreessen, sorry. He's an investor and one of the earliest pioneers of the internet, basically, and online browsing. And I will go over these two people again later in the blog post. What stood out here, I think, is these different approaches by Sam Walton, and I'm not quite sure what the founder of Kmart was called, but having a rational approach to certain problems will lead you another way than having an emotional approach. I think we're all aware of that, but controlled emotions are very powerful because you know how to raise interest in people and how they think. And if you connect basically your solution to an emotion, well, that's what made Sam Walton basically one of the richest persons that have ever lived on this planet. So definitely some insight in here. Then he goes on. Courage is rarer than genius, so you must work against the norm and ask yourself, what do I consider true, what most people do not do, or vice versa? This is just one of the questions that I have included in this blog post. There are 10 in total that come in later to help you get started, to well, basically let you think about what you actually want from your side hustle or your business or your journey in this life that isn't really clear if you think logically or emotionally about it. These questions are hard-hitting and definitely get the gears turning in your head, so stay tuned for that later. Small groups, like startups, focus on recruiting and asking the right questions. They reevaluate truth and learn to think. Large groups do not think, the individual does. Investor and founder of PayPal, Peter Thiel, gave each employee a specific task, thus ensuring harmony. Everyone is aware of what they are working for. Assume the person who is in your audience feels similar to you, so they want to enjoy personal interaction too. It's important to build credibility while offering authentic help. The thing about authenticity, it's often used as an excuse to treat people in a negative way. So the content you put out should always portray what you stand for, of course, because what your mental state is and everything is also a reflection of that, what's your output in the world. But this authenticity, Seth Godin talked about it, I think. He said that, well, this is just my opinion. I was just being authentic. If people like attack you verbally or on the internet, but you're still dependent on those people. So you should, of course, be authentic, but in a nice and kind way, that doesn't damage your reputation or your business's reputation or hurt other people intentionally. It's never the goal, of course. And harmony is one of the best things you can have inside your working culture, of course. There has to be friction and stuff in the beginning to get you started, but sooner or later it will just cause headache if you have too much to worry about all the time. And the thing with small groups or large groups, they don't think. I think you can see it like on an everyday basis. Like if there's a leader that's charismatic, people would rather just listen to the advice he gives without thinking really much about it and then just follow blindly. And I think there was a main problem in the wars we have seen so far, and it still is today. If you're living in echo chambers, it's easier to just consume the content and consume it every day and just get maybe like fed with it, than to actually go out of your way and research stuff that may contradict your own opinion and view of the world. So yeah, it's important that you find people and a team that you can rely on and that is eager to learn new stuff. So startups, usually the most important factor here is the team. Well, Mark Andreessen argues otherwise, but I will go over that as well. That's exactly what Chris Williamson did, creator and host of the Modern Wisdom podcast. He had a flat viewership graph for 3.5 years, even with relatively prominent guests. And then, in December 2023, he had more listeners than in all the previous years combined. And I'm talking about the 3.5 years here. Now it reaches 500 million people and grows by 30% a year. If you find one thing, stick with it, no matter how hopeless it seems. Some people don't see results for years, and until an influencer suddenly mentions the product, and boom, you still only made one sale. That joke's on you. Now get up and try again. You get it right. So what I'm saying here, there's always a little luck involved. People make luck out to be, okay, you're simply adaptable, you're open, and then you take action when an opportunity presents to you. And that may be true, but there's still certain factors that have to fall in the right order. And although Chris Williamson's journey didn't like rely on luck much, because he was uploading every week for 3-5 podcasts episodes for 5 years now or something. So he accumulated basically the work and compounded and then got him to where he is today, one of the biggest podcasts in the world. But there's still this factor of luck involved in regard to where he was born, what kind of person he was, how his family treated him, and all that kind of stuff that made it even possible to think about this, to have the capacity to actually take action and let these daily seemingly minor things compound. You can't compete with anyone who has fun. This is an important sentence, because no matter what, if the person enjoys the journey, it will be hard to keep up with it unless you do it as well. Nowadays, the value of a person is determined by the metrics that are visible. Money or net worth is recognized and visible worldwide. But what about your relationships, your sleep, your emotional state, life satisfaction? These hidden metrics are really what matters. The journey to your goal should be bearable and challenging at the same time. Your company and output are a reflection of your ideas and mental state. All the self-criticism and bad voices only make it harder to reach your goal. Don't worry about achieving hundreds of millions of downloads. Just do great work in a category, in a chosen product or service or offer or type of writing that makes you new. Scratch your own itch and you will end up with something you're proud of. If you can find, cultivate, appeal to, and convert 1,000 diehard fans, those are your true fans. Those people will actually consume anything you put out because they trust you to that degree. You don't need to do anything else. And you should all do all of that with measure and purpose. If you want to be successful in business, you need to create an easy to explain, differentiated product. Just focus on 1,000 real fans and set clear, measurable goals with check-ins, for example, every week, month, quarter, or all of the above, to track your performance. These key performance indicators, these key metrics, if you have them, you are ahead of 99% of the world trying to start a business. Then it's time to look at the customers and identify the 20% of customers that generate 80% or more of your revenue. Okay, let's make a stop here. These are important things. First of all, you have to be clear what your customer base should look like, okay? Because if you're just putting out content without really appealing to one certain category, then it's going to be too broad. And some people may like it, and then they won't like other aspects that you put out the next week, you know? So you should stick with one thing and try it for a certain amount of time. 12 weeks is like a nice window to play with. And then keep the indicators, the key metrics in check and in the back of your mind, and work from there, you know? You will also get the feedback, of course. If you put out content, you will always get feedback, and that's necessary to improve or change stuff. The thing is that it should be challenging because it will give you this adrenaline infusion that gets you up every day. Because when motivation dies, and it will die eventually, discipline has taken over. And you can be more disciplined if the task and to-do lists of every day are actually bearable. So that's why it's this mix of both. And therefore, if you don't like the work you do, and there will be parts where you don't like the work you do, eventually it will happen, it should be at least the vision you have should be so meaningful to you that you stick with it no matter what, and that your mental state won't be diminished too badly, because otherwise it will reflect your output. This is a quote by Tim Ferriss. I really like it because you can always think of a business idea of something that bothers you. If you just take a look around on a daily basis, what you think needs improvement, chances are other people think so as well. So it would be wise to pay more attention to these kind of problems, to listen to people if they're complaining about something. Maybe you have a solution. What do people look for or ask you for in your expertise, you know? That's something to just keep in mind. And then this one, the 80-20 rule, it's the Pareto principle, also called, there are a bunch of names for it. It's basically that it's in a lot of things. Okay, so 80% of revenue is generated by 20% of companies or global nations, for example. The 20% richest ones make 80% of the products, and the trade, or the 20% best students make 80% of the work in the classroom. The other ones are just chilling and talking. So it's in everything. It doesn't have to be 100% all the time. It can also be 90 and 5, for example, or 95 and 5, which accumulates to 100 again. But it doesn't have to be the 80-20. It's just like a rough estimate. If you don't want to work 18 hours for the rest of your life, you need to make it easier to be more efficient. For example, by letting go of high workload clients or hiring virtual assistants. Hustling or working hard can be a form of procrastination and laziness. Make sure you have a clear target, your sights and scope very well calibrated so that you strike with a high success rate. Indiscriminate action is an expression of not thinking and planning enough, and that is one of the most destructive forms of laziness because it is socially supported. People will encourage you to do that. If you always appear busy, people assume that you are getting stuff done, which is usually not the case because we aren't good at multitasking. You may chase one thing, and that one thing may be valuable or urgent, but it may be not the most important thing right now that you have to do. So that's why Tim Ferriss also published the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, which is also based on the Pareto principle, that 20% of the work will get 80% of the results. Same with your customer base. That's why identifying the 20% best customers that will pay for everything. Like if you publish a blog post, they read it. If you publish a book, audiobook, give live Q&As, they will attend everything and they will buy everything. These are the people you look out for and want to nurture, not the ones that complain in every email. I mean, of course, these people come and you have to care for them as well, but it shouldn't be your main focus. And that's why hard working or hustling can also be a form of procrastination, because you procrastinate the things that are actually important for the things that seem urgent. And yeah, it's just it's just complicated and chaotic all the time, basically. So you have to be a clear thinker in that regard. And since you're emotionally invested in your business, they can be hard. So you have to reevaluate from time to time what actually matters. Naval Ravikant on the possibilities of the internet. In the almanac of Naval Ravikant, he advocates the use of leverage as a means to success in business and life. In his opinion, leverage means the ability to achieve more with less effort. Nowadays, it is possible to acquire immense knowledge through the internet and thus easily create the content that is scalable without permission. As long as you trade your time for money, you will never become financially independent. You have to automate it or generate it passively. In his opinion, there are different forms of leverage, including leverage on time, using technology, systems, and outsourcing, network leverage, building a network of supportive and valuable relationships, money leverage, using capital, investments, and other financial instruments, leverage skills, developing a highly valuable and marketable skill set, and attention leverage, attracting attention to your ideas, products, or services through effective marketing. Memes are ideas that are passed on in a society. Today we associate them with funny dog pictures or comics. To create and predict memes, you have to look at trends and whether there is a counter current to the existing meme. Dating coaches, #MeToo, red pill, black pill, and so on. They must have a visually appealing image, could cause a stir and coincide with the user's experiences. This is how you create leverage, because it spreads itself. Something else came up when reading this right now. There are plenty of people, I'm sure you have heard of the survivorship bias, which is basically was the phenomenon in the Second World War where the engineers were looking at the planes that came back to analyze what weaponry was fatal to the airplanes and where they had to shoot the enemies to bring one down. And all the airplanes that returned had these marks and these holes in the armor of the plane. So they concluded, hey, these shots are pretty much irrelevant. The ones that we don't see are the ones that bring down the airplane. And this made them think, okay, we have to reinforce these parts where we don't see the bullet holes, basically. And it's a small minority of bullets that are invisible to the broad eye, basically. And you have the survivorship, or a kind of survivorship bias in entrepreneurs as well. Because for everyone that you see having success, there are millions or thousands of people that don't have the success, but try every day and every day. You just don't see them. But because this one person has this relatable story that he needed to wake up for 4 years at 4 a.m., do meditation and workouts, hustle all the way. It was difficult, he had ups and downs, he was almost bankrupt and stuff. He's telling you this because it aligns with your experience of starting a business. If he was just like, hey, I did it, it was easy, you wouldn't be interested in listening to him really, because he has nothing to share with you. And he doesn't even want to share anything because there are so many people that just start something and then they make it. And then it's just like, okay, I'm selling my stuff and moving to an island or something and working on something new. Most founders and CEOs of super successful companies, you have never heard of them. Literally, like everything you use day in, day out, like Twitter, okay, it's Elon Musk, he bought it, or TikTok or OpenAI, these people, but they're still like on a lower level, people making billions and millions of dollars, getting super rich, being super successful, but you never heard their name. So also something to keep in mind, that these online gurus over-exaggerate certain stuff, to make them more relatable to their audience. I think cybersecurity will be an important topic in the future, but it's too dry right now. It needs better memes to get recognition. Ravikant emphasizes that the key to leverage is to find ways to scale your efforts so you can do more with less time and effort. By leveraging technology, your network, your skills, financial resources, You can build a self-sustaining business or career that will bring you long-term success and fulfillment. Personality has nothing to do with potential. Whether you are lazy or hardworking, it makes little qualitative difference to be a sloth or a mole. Both do not seek clarity, truth, knowledge, understanding of the world, which is really the noblest goal. Through leverage, you can discover the truth more easily, without much hard work. Learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable. These are the two very broad categories. One is building a product, it's difficult and it's multivariate. It can include design, it can include development, manufacturing, and so on. And it can even be the operation of a service. If you have specific knowledge, you can take responsibility and you have leverage. You have to be paid what you're worth. If you're paid what you're worth, you can get your time back. You can be very efficient. All you care about is the actual work. While many believe that the team is the most important factor in the success of a startup, Marc Andreessen argues that the market is the most important. A great market will pull out the product of the startup, while a bad market can lead to failure, even with the best product and team. Many startups fail because they never achieve the fit between product and market. This fit is the only thing that counts in the initial phase of a startup. So, tech mogul and investor Marc Andreessen advises against planning your career because the world is uncertain and constantly changing. Instead, you should focus on seizing opportunities even if they arise unexpectedly. If you want to build something bigger, you have to define what value your own company offers that justifies higher costs. You can't compete with Amazon, but you can win with quality and promises. A clear promise to customers and the assurance that employees see their contribution to the promise are the prerequisites for better performance. This approach is more effective than trying to get employees to do cheap work. We use the concept of substitutes to make judgments or decisions when direct information is lacking. We use substitutes in various aspects of life, such as choosing a product in a supermarket or hiring a person for a job. You can't open a ketchup bottle and just try it. You have to trust the label. These proxy values can often be misleading or wrong, leading to various forms of discrimination and bias, such as caste system, social stratification, prejudice, and misogyny. In hiring processes, the candidate's college prestige or interviewing skills may be relevant but not necessarily correlate with his or her abilities to do the job well. It's best to pay someone to carry out a short project and base the decision on the outcome of that project, rather than relying on proxies. More qualities such as resilience, willingness to take risks, honesty, transparency, commitment, and loyalty will be in demand in a rapidly changing world. You have to examine the person very closely before you hire them for important and meaningful work. Companies in the past have tried to limit their employees' opportunities to keep labor costs low. An advertising agency called St. Luke's in London decided to limit itself to 30 employees and a certain number of clients. This resulted in a waiting list of clients and employees, making it easy to replace both as needed. Turnover in people-focused work environment is advantageous, and employees must be encouraged to keep their career options open. That's the thing. Seth Godin noticed that less and less college graduates from elite colleges like Harvard and Stanford are applying for open positions because they don't really see the value in getting a $200,000 degree and then working for someone instead of trying their own stuff. So this just makes sense in my opinion, because the American dream in going the classical route is harder and harder to achieve because you're not getting taught these qualities that are required for it, you know? And I think you get them by simply offering your services for free and then getting the foot in the door with a reputable company, and then sort of convincing the CEO or the board of your qualities as a person. And the thing is, these companies, these skyscrapers we see everywhere in the big cities, they make millions and billions of dollars maybe, but at what cost? Your mental health. So they build these large structures with cubicles inside, big glass windows to make you feel like you have sort of the freedom, but you're actually trapped in this small room, you know? and everyone can see you all the time. Or take a look at the word human resources. It actually indicates that you treat humans as material that you can trade around as like resources. So there's this disconnect between your emotional state and what you're actually capable of as a human. You just looked at your skill sets. Again, the visible metrics, of you as a person, what your output is and stuff, but not how you handle stress or relationships. Also, like between coworkers, how you communicate with each other. That's stuff that's not quite obvious, and it doesn't get really complemented in today's work environment. And that's why he is for the idea. This is all by Seth Godin. He is an advocate of the idea of short projects, and that the work ethic or the company's ethic should be, hey, we welcome you here. You work on some projects, you gain some insights. It's a beneficial process for both sides, and then you leave and we take on another one, and the knowledge you gained, you will do good work at the next company as well. And yeah, that's just like a wholesome thought, maybe unrealistic, I'm not sure, but I think it would be definitely better than just like sitting 20-30 years in something, trying to get raises and making your boss richer and being unhappy in the process. Yeah, I see it too often, and it's very discouraging for young people as well. So companies should aim to create working conditions where employees choose to stay because of the intrinsic value of the work rather than job security. When employees leave the company should reconsider its working conditions rather than blame the employees. A shift from long-term careers to shorter project-based engagements will become more relevant. This leads to rapid onboarding and a different dynamic of turnover. Employee retention should be based on the desire to stay, not on an emergency. Capitalism places too much emphasis on the lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If one were to try to solve the higher needs in a targeted way, the economic system could turn 180 degrees. We're looking for perfection and try to just satisfy this problem by consuming material things. If greed is a natural part of human nature, so is altruism. The existence of greed is not a sufficient reason to build an economy that rewards it. In other words, to conclude from observing people in capitalism that it is in our nature to be greedy is the equivalent to observing us only underwater and concluding that it is in our nature to drown. Psychologist Abraham Maslow found that one had to turn one's back on culture and society to self-actualize. In his final book, he did not put self-actualization at the top, but self-transcendence. This suggests that he knows that true, meaningful happiness and fulfillment cannot be achieved by putting one's needs to the fore, self-actualization, but by living for a higher purpose. By improving your family, your community, access to education and health, creating something valuable and giving back more to the world than you take. What does this say about the system? Advertisers and companies have perfected the art of connecting products with emotions and desires. One often wants to buy status and recognition. However, this is too profit-driven instead of focusing on the future and happiness of future generations. I think we see it right now. The US spending budget has been like, they had no lever on it, or a lot of levers rather, but they had no constraints. They just bought and spent the money, and now they're getting the punishment for it. The dollar's weaker than ever, or getting weaker than ever, and they are like masquerading the data right now, but it will hit soon. And if it hits, it will look bad for the economy, I think. It's still the US, so they will be fine, but other countries noticed, and they stopped certain parts of trading with them. And also the military budget is too high and all that kind of stuff. So you see it on a state base, but you also see it in the consumer base. Like the average emergency fund of a 30-year-old in the US is $1,000. So yeah, debt is increasing throughout their life, and they are pushed into this need, and that is a good thing to do, and society portrays it as noble to basically buy something on debt, and then pay it off, if it's like a car loan, if it's for a house, whatever. And yeah, you always get from all sides this urge to show status and to become part of one group by buying into it. You always have to have the newest tech and stuff to be relevant in today's times, but that's bullshit. Straight up bullshit. These people, you don't want to do anything with them if they are thinking like that, but that's just my opinion. So you do what you want, but yeah, I think sooner or later people will realize that the only thing that actually matters at the end of the day are the social connections and the meaning you derive from that, the meaning you give to the people you love and you receive. So yeah. Advertisers, we had that. Happiness is bad for the economy. Key. If you could turn this thinking around and profitably help people deeply in their search for meaning, fulfillment, and emotional satisfaction, it would be like inventing the light bulb. I'm trying to do this on a small scale, but if companies put that at like the top of their priority list, and also states, of course, then yeah, I think this would actually be the case, like the inventing the light bulb. Experts working in a specific field for the majority of their lives are required to keep an open mind, to keep up with the constant changes accelerated by AI and tech startups popping up like weed. Once they're becoming too stubborn because their concepts and workflows work for the past 30 years, they'll be superseded by some young college student inventing fire in their garage. One pitfall they all have to avoid is also one of the most important elements of human nature, namely our inability to ignore sunk costs. The fallacy of sunk costs is our tendency to continue with the project into which we have invested money, effort, or time, even if the current costs outweigh the benefits. Even though the term sounds like jargon, it is a common decision trap in life and in business. Sunk costs are the unspoken minefield of errors in which we rationalize why we need to justify what we already have. We invent new meanings for the word momentum that go far beyond Isaac Newton. We imagine that we have to stick with what we have made. The most useful advice I can give people is to learn to ignore sunk costs. When you start imposing limitations on yourself in your work or personal life, you will see a clearer path forward. But there are also times when you actually have momentum, when you have confidence, when you have assets, when you have a chance to move forward. Let's take the band REM as an example. They decided to stop touring and change instruments to get out of the burnout phase. As a result, one of the best-selling albums was created, because they all had the benefit of their momentum and trust in each other and the trust in the fans. But these fresh eyes and these new limits allowed them to explore new edges, and it's the edges where the tension lies. So they didn't play cover versions of their old selves, they were something new. If you want to start a business, ask yourself, what resources are you willing to invest in it? Either resources for which you're willing to take emotional work and risks, or resources you already have. These can be resources like time, risk tolerance, and money. Then you should ask yourself, who should my customers be? If you hate your customers, you will hate your business too. Be specific in your niche and communicate your offer appropriately. What do you want to achieve with it? Are you looking for something that improves everyday life, or do you want to butter up to win a prize in X months or years? The current Western mindset is, tell me if it works and then I will do it. This partly stems from school, where you're in school when someone says, will this be on the test? The phrase, will this be on the test, means I'm willing to memorize it temporarily if you're willing to trade me for an A. If not, I'll tune out because I have plenty of other things to do. I'll come back when you're ready to trade. If you have things on this list that you haven't done yet, if you have things on your list you haven't done yet, ironically, those are the things most likely to work, because other people aren't doing them either. If you want to learn how to juggle, you have to drop in enormous numbers of balls. If you want to learn how to swim, you have to somehow drown. If you want to learn how to be creative, you have to show me an enormous number of bad ideas. Pick the smallest region, the smallest area, any random segment, start listing your bad ideas. Keep listing your bad ideas, and let's prove that your bad ideas are not fatal. Someone with good taste decides to be creative. And good taste means knowing what your audience wants 10 minutes before they do themselves. And that's it. You can't have good taste if you don't have expertise and understand the genre. So when you combine these two things, regular understanding and good taste, you can be creative. This works well by testing and developing concepts. So what the genre says is that there's a box, and I can think outside the box because it's dark. But on the edges of the box, I have influence. You have to know what the box is before you can do something that's considered creative. Okay, I will take a short break here and we'll be right back to you again. Okay, let's continue right where we left off. A perfect example of why you have to care about what you're doing. Julius Caesar famously said, "If you want to, then go. If not, then send." What he actually meant by that was, if you want it done right, then you have to go and do it yourself. If you are the client, then you are the owner. You take care of it and you will do a good job. If you're at the representative and acting on behalf of another, you can do a poor job. You simply don't care. You optimize for yourself and not for the client's wealth. The smaller the company, the more everyone feels like a client. The less you feel like an agent, the better the work you do. The closer you can link an employee's compensation to the value they create, the more you make them the client. A Steve Jobs or a Mark Zuckerberg would not have given up or sold for any amount of money. They simply were, like a Steve Jobs, he influenced the tech world in ways that aren't comprehensible. And he asked himself every day, is this what I want to do? And why do I do it? How can I make it better? He was passionately behind his products in a way like probably no one else has ever been. Probably like an Henry Ford or someone like that, who invented something. And even on his deathbed, Walter Isaacson, who wrote a biography about him, he said one thing: please tell my children why I did it, and then I'm sorry for it, because they spent so much time thinking about it. It's probably not the right way. Again, we talked about the 1,000 true fans. That's something that's comprehensible in a small team, or even maybe you alone as a person. But if you want to build a big corporation, you have to have someone take responsibility for certain tasks, and you have to distribute ownership, basically. And that's why this quote is so important. If you have colleagues and employees, then they have to stand behind your vision. The mission is the most important thing. I'm not too fond of the name right now, but there was someone who was specifically hired by Apple in like the integral team to hire more people, to expand the team. And he was looking for certain applicants who really understood what Apple was trying to achieve. Because if you suddenly, widen your or lower your standards, or widen your basically the goals that you pursue as a company, and you don't have like the clear path anymore, then things can get complicated in the team itself. Now, of course, Apple is a global company, a worldwide player, so they have to have a wide range of people. And it's good to have a diverse working culture, but if you're a startup, it's integral and necessary that the team completely understands why it's doing what it's doing, basically. If you remain stubborn in your vision but flexible in the details, it's harder to stagnate. This is an important sentence. You should note it down or something. If you haven't already, take out pen and paper and just write it down. And these people, they treat their business or their startup as their baby, like Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college, not because, it's like always portraying this good thing to do, dropping out of college. But you have to understand that a Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs, these people are like 1 in 100 million people, Like they can drop out of college. If you do it properly, you have to sort of have a safety net that you can rely on. I mean, I'm not a fan of college at all, or university or whatever, but still, there has to be some plan at least in place that you can follow along. It often happens that errors creep into seemingly perfect models or data. Then it is important to manually check with which parameters are no longer correct and where the cause lies. Clear thinking should also be applied in meetings. Jeff Bezos is not a fan of PowerPoint because it is easy for the creator and difficult for the listeners. A memo has the opposite effect. Reading a clear document with written sentences for half an hour and then discussing wildly, throwing in questions and creating hypotheses is essential. In addition, juniors should speak before seniors to avoid bias when other opinions are voiced first. We are naturally inclined to thrive in social environments, but not to explore the truth. Therefore, it is all the more important to make the process of truth-seeking easy. That were words out of the Lex Fridman podcast with Jeff Bezos. Can highly recommend it. And he's completely right in this. Because if your boss basically forms an opinion and says it out loud, of course, damn, the voice crack, of course you're inclined to follow that opinion. Because speaking up against your boss, you have to be courageous to do that at least. It's of course a good character trait to have, to have integrity in your beliefs in yourself, but probably not advantageous if you want to rise in the company as well, to confront your boss, depending on, of course, what kind of character he is again. But yeah, it's just a good thing to basically avoid all of that potential drama that could occur if you just let the juniors speak before the seniors. It's such a simple thing. And with a PowerPoint as well, like if you're presenting it, you have worked on it for weeks, and then you know what is the next slide and the next slide and the next slide, what is coming up, how to prepare for it. But the audience just like there, okay, it's like they don't know what's coming. And with a memo, everyone has the same thing in front of themselves, and then the discussion round that follows is the important thing. Technology is miraculous because it allows us to achieve more with less. We are changing the world's plan. A world without innovation is a static society, a zero-sum game, where every gain for one person means a loss for another. From a human perspective, the continuous creation of new ideas, behaviors, and new types of objects is the only alternative to a static society. Ideas do not survive the battle with time because they contain truth, but because they are interesting, and what makes something exciting above all is surprise and overturning old beliefs. Peter Thiel argues that it is better to build a monopoly, as otherwise you lose focus on what really matters. As a startup, you create an identity based on past struggles and experiences, and therefore it is incredibly difficult to break out when something seems to be going well. However, the sunk costs may be much larger and you convince yourself that what you're doing is meaningful. Google is a tech company that interacts all over the world, so they have no monopoly, yet they have a clear majority of all the search volume. All startups that want to stand out go into a niche and market themselves in a special way without giving real value. It's about finding the hidden door that is not clearly visible, and once established, it becomes so widely accepted that one no longer knows how life worked without it. It's the same with Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. Like, I think Meta, WhatsApp, Instagram has over 3 to 4 billion users. It's like a daily part of our lives, If you're waking up, you take your phone out. If you're going to sleep, you look at your phone, It's like, you can't imagine how it would be without it anymore. And therefore you could argue it's a monopoly. Although Twitter has a lot of shares of it, a lot of percentage share of the user base and stuff. But these people use everything. So it's kind of same with Gmail. Like a board of 30 members or something designs like the most widely used and accepted email platform. How it looks, how it interacts, which emails are sent faster, which ones are not and stuff. And the algorithms behind it. Like they spend billions of dollars on algorithms to perfect the user engagement per se, how to keep you longer on the platform, how to send more emails, how to make it less complicated for you to interact with it. So yeah, it's just like the tech building itself based on the metrics, the key indicators that we talked again. And then with AI, it's like even more accelerated. It's crazy. Elon Musk is a pioneer in this regard. Whatever you may think of him, but he's definitely driving our humanity forward. It's occasionally helpful to choose enemies wisely, to use them as a driving force. Most people function well when they are doing well. Unfortunately, most of life is about struggle and pain, which serves as efficient fuel to achieve great things. The more despicable your enemy's attacks, the more your bad sides could be revealed. However, this should be seen as an opportunity to put yourself in the right light, or even to reverse it. It's probably a valid criticism sometimes that you can work with it. It's funny, I recently, or I think yesterday or something, there was this article by the New Yorker about Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist with one of the most famous podcasts, helped millions of people around the world. I always read the comments. Basically, someone saying, hey, I quit alcohol because of you and stuff, and you made my life better, you saved my life and stuff. And this hit piece by the New Yorker was about his private life, his love life in particular, that he slept with multiple women at the same time and stuff. And of course, this is an attack on him personally. And it's a biased opinion because those were his exes. Of course, they have certain stuff to say about him. Nonetheless, the feedback that came out of it, and when the New Yorker posted the article, was pretty much in favor of Huberman, just like jokingly saying, whoa, his protocols actually seem to work if he can coordinate all the dates and has multiple women who are intelligent and stuff. It's like, of course, super misogynistic in that regard, but he could easily turn it into something that his supporters appreciate or think it's funny, at least, you know. If he suddenly drops a protocol about like I don't know, his timetables or something, how he manages stuff, you know, it's like an indirect answer to the interview. His spokesperson, of course, gave one as well, but he sort of turns it in this funny regard instead of just like apologizing, you know. That's probably something he should do as well. It's like a complicated topic, I don't want to get into it. Yeah, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, those people were so ambitious that they chose their opponents one-on-one and outperformed them individually in every training. Michael Jordan has become a figure, like one of the best sportsmen ever. If you're like, I don't know, you say these analogies basically. Novak Djokovic, he plays tennis, he's the Michael Jordan of tennis, you know. He's like a status symbol by now that you measure the value and the skill of another person in another sport. Cristiano Ronaldo is the Michael Jordan of football or something, or Messi. So yeah, these people were just like a different level of dedicated. And it also helped the sport to gain viewership and to improve skills. You know, he set the bar high. Same with Ferrari and Lamborghini. You know, they built cars. The first one built actual... I don't know what the word is in English, but yeah, they eventually turned to cars, and then they made it better and better. And then someone started to, and I think it was Enzo Ferrari, who started to dial back a little, you know, his efforts. And yeah, it was mutually beneficial for everyone, basically, because of the innovations. And same with Elon Musk, I mentioned before. He had unconditional love from his mother and just as much hate from his father. He used both for himself at the right moments and now has made states, censorship, traditional institutions, and infrastructure his enemies. A company must grow and function durably over years or decades, even if it loses money at the beginning. This is achieved through branding, technological adaptation, networking, and scalability. People who have everything in check achieve incredible things, and others call it luck. There's always a hint of luck involved, but most of it happens through cause and effect. You can change the world through long-term planning, but this is destroyed by our short-term world. So remain flexible in the moment, but have a vision. If you only have one plan A, you avoid becoming mediocre in many things and then calling it well-roundedness. This is a quote by Peter Thiel again, the startup founder, PayPal and stuff. He's like a genius when it comes to numbers and thinking and analyzing stuff. I think Eric Weinstein, like probably one of the smartest physicians alive, He talked about him and he said he's a genius. He's a next level genius. So that should tell you something. And Eric Weinstein is probably one of the smartest people I ever seen on video and in interviews. So yeah, it's just a good approach. I don't know. To have like one thing to focus on and go fully into it. And then there are these small tweaks, like giving every employee one task so it doesn't conflict with other ones. And then in the end, you have someone who's accountable for it, who can measure their skill set and level and experience on the one task they're supposed to do. A startup is a cult that recognizes truths and lies in the world the others ignore and thus improves the world. If you have found such secrets, such as how the world actually works, you should keep them to yourself. The best marketing strategies involve art that is clearly visible but disguised. They are not obvious sales pitches, but subtle hints. The background processes must run smoothly, such as the distribution of products, and the sales channels must be optimized. Without them, the product can be as good as it gets. I'm not sure if I agree with you should keep them to yourself, the secrets, because nowadays there's this debate on open source, and especially in the tech industry, if OpenAI drops something, the algorithms or something, they usually do it openly, or they plan to release it to the wide public so the others can work with it, because, as mentioned, some people deem themselves experts in certain fields, but because they are so vigorous in their efforts and work day in, day out on the same stuff with the same techniques, they sort of lose touch with new approaches and new thinking patterns that could be established if you look at it from like a third person, neutral point of view. Other brain areas are activated if you aren't passionately and emotionally invested in the substance you explore. So I think it's a good thing to spread knowledge and to let others use what you've discovered, because it propels humanity forward in general. If your goal is, of course, to build a monopoly as Peter Thiel's was, then it's better probably to keep it intern and to build something. And then if you have like the position where you can't really be pushed off the throne again, then you can share what made you or what got you into the position you are in right now. It's a personal thing, I guess. Keep this in mind. The tools and mindsets you use at the beginning may not help you at the end. You have to constantly interrogate yourself about which problems or tasks you are trying to avoid and why. Take comfort. No one actually knows what the hell they are doing. Everyone is just working off the current best guess. These are important advice, because I think the human mind is flawed. Everything we create is flawed as well, therefore, and thus we have to always keep us in check, our thinking and also what we produce, because eventually things get outdated, you have to update them anyways, so you should always strive for longevity in everything you do. If you have a decision to make, you should focus on, okay, what produces the most luck in the future, and this is a great way to take the pressure off in the moment, because what you decide on, it's pretty much not irrelevant, but you will because you are the kind of person that always gets the most out of every decision you take. It doesn't really matter if you go with A or B. You will have a good path to choose and you will pursue it relentlessly no matter what. The final outcome will come. The compound habits that you establish throughout your life, they will lead to the results you desire. The constant thinking and doubting and neuroticism and everything else, that the struggle with yourself, it's an integral part of human nature, and it's obvious that it happens, but you should dial down from moment to moment. I think meditation is a game changer when it comes to this. Same with constantly interrogating yourself, or appreciating that, hey, this is pretty random what's happening here. It seems random, but you can dissect it step by step. And it's good to have clear thoughts and a moment of peace sometimes where you can actually think, because we are so occupied all the time with our smartphones. Like if you're bored, you pull out this thing, and that's not good. We're never alone anymore with our thoughts. And I think these moments when you're under the shower or driving in traffic or something, we have good ideas. We can be creative in these moments. And I think we should actually nurture these moments and have more of them throughout the day. And the brain only makes small steps. It can only think from A to B. So yeah, give yourself time. The human mind is predictably and consistently wrong about many things. We tend to misremember how we felt in the past. We are terrible at predicting what will make us happy in the future. We struggle to be objective in the present. Same thing with this one. Mindfulness, it's such a valuable skill. Ask yourself more often. These are the 10 questions I talked about. What is extremely important to clarify right now? What am I avoiding? What are the people around me struggling with? What are my strengths? Where do people look for my expertise? These are also included in the so-called ikigai, which is sort of the purpose of life in Japanese. You basically have these 4 categories, also what earns money, and then you take notes on every single point and you see what overlaps the most. And there's this golden circle in the middle where you have usually 2 to 3 points or so. They come in every of the 4 categories. And yeah, these are the points you should concentrate and focus on. Do I surround myself with people who make me want to lie on the couch with my cell phone afterward? Or am I motivated to run 10 kilometers on the track after spending time with these friends? Because our social circles, the 5 closest people you surround yourself with, they will probably define you as well. And you have to decide if you want to be defined by them or if you want to use it as an indicator that, hey, this is not the person I want to be, this is not the future I want to see, so I need to break out. What am I optimizing for in the new year? It should be one thing, one top priority, and also be aware that there are these multiplicators. So if you are, for example, in a romantic relationship and you have trouble with your wife or husband right now, nothing else really matters because you can take your mind off the stressful situation in your private life, so everything else is influenced by it. This is a 1000 multiplicator, okay? If you're sick, it's a 101 because you really want to get well again, but there's certain stuff that has to be sorted out before you can do other stuff. What would I do if I knew I would fail? Great question. What would be worth doing even if it didn't work out? What's a strong opinion I believe is true that others don't? What trends are emerging right now that haven't been noticed yet? I highly encourage you to go through these questions, maybe take a screenshot or something and write them down for yourself, answer them, and then see what comes out of it. Now we are going to talk a little about motivation and discipline. Trust me, this one gets really interesting because there are things in there that you haven't heard before, and small tweaks can make an enormous difference. Intrinsic motivation is most effective. As we've discussed earlier, you cannot compete with people who are having fun during the activity they are pursuing. After waking up, one experiences the highest attention and motivation 30 minutes, 3 hours, and 11 hours after waking up. This is related to circadian rhythms. Good sleep, exercise, social contacts, and hobbies are the basic foundation to achieve goals. The goal should feel challenging, perhaps slightly out of reach, to emit that adrenaline infusion needed to pursue big things. Prioritizing is essential, and focusing on one thing at a time as well. Write down goals and tasks by hand and be specific. Additionally, setting a rough time frame, such as 12 weeks, is often beneficial. The 12 weeks isn't grabbed out of thin air. It's a good time window to actually see first results and then reflect on the past weeks. Okay, did this lead to the desired outcome? Is it a good direction I'm moving towards to, or a bad one? And then you can evaluate again and set a new time frame or start something different. Do not optimize for the days when everything works out perfectly or for the best time of your life at a special event or birthday, for example. Optimize for an ordinary Tuesday. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. I believe this is by from the book Atomic Habits, and it emphasizes the importance of the habits you build on a daily basis and how you can rely on them. So I talked about the thoughts that aren't making the journey to the end goal easier. It's the same with this analogy. You should imagine your journey to the desired outcome as a train ride, with you doing small daily steps day in, day out, so that the train is going to arrive at the train station no matter what. Okay, it just changes speed, but the direction is the same. So you are not basically the active steerer of the wheel in like a car, for example, that you can like decide, okay, I want to go left and right and stuff like that. It's like the track is determined. There's this one outcome that you are going to achieve sooner or later, and it it connects to these habits that you build throughout your life that will compound and bring the desired results. It's the same with like you can also do the reverse. Okay, what unhealthy habits do I have in my life right now? For example, eating chocolate every day. It won't have like a big impact in 5 years, but maybe in 20, 30 years, you will get diabetes out of it, could be the cause of it. Often, it's not a problem of lacking motivation, but being too strongly motivated in the wrong direction. Performing tasks in life requires overcoming, and one is actually highly motivated to do what one is currently doing, such as watching TV or playing video games. This motivation is controlled by the reward system in the brain, particularly by the nucleus accumbens, which is responsible for reward, behavioral reinforcement, and motivation. This part of the brain responds to pleasure with dopamine, leading to motivation to experience that pleasure again. The nucleus accumbens is also very sensitive to pain, which explains why people tend to avoid painful tasks, which in turn leads to procrastination. Eudaimonia is associated with satisfaction and general happiness and is influenced by the insula brain and serotonin. Consciously experiencing and analyzing pleasure reduces the nucleus accumbens reaction while increasing eudaimonia. This can be achieved through practices such as fasting, but also consciously experiencing pleasure without getting lost in it. Through these techniques, one can decrease motivation for hedonistic activities while simultaneously increasing a sense of satisfaction and contentment. There's this simple test when you're eating chocolate. Are you actually tasting the chocolate and have this happy moment because it tastes so good? Or are you even thinking about, or instantly thinking about, the next piece of chocolate you're going to eat because, well, you just need it in this moment? It's like this dopaminergic response is for the anticipated reward, not for the current experience you're having. And if you simply focus on the sandwich that you're eating right now, like every ingredient of it, without struggling with the thoughts, like the negative thought cycles that are projecting your worst future or something, or the past decisions you've made. Because if we just eat the sandwich, you're going to have thoughts come up. Okay, what am I going to do after this? Or I still have to do this on my to-do list and this task I've been pushing around for days. I don't want to make this call. All these kinds of topics. And if you just focus on the sandwich in front of you, it's a mindfulness exercise, okay? And you increase this eudaimonia neural pathway in your brain, which also, of course, correlates with other happiness factors in your life. Happiness is a skill you can acquire. It's in the daily small things that you're doing. The experience of giving 100% effort is often associated with an emotional orientation toward the task, whether it be positive emotions like enthusiasm or negative emotions like anger. In contrast, the feeling of not being fully engaged is often associated with thoughts like, I don't feel like it, I don't have the energy for it today. Our emotional response to a task depends on our perception of ourselves, our identity. If we see ourselves as capable or interested in a task, our emotions are positive and we are motivated to fulfill their tasks. However, if we see ourselves incapable and disinterested, our emotions are negative and our motivation decreases. To increase motivation, we must change our perception of ourselves and the associated emotions. If the process is not exciting enough to intrinsically motivate you, the goal should have meaning to result the same. The thing here is, it can be incredibly hard to sort of explain why something matters to yourself. So you should do the exercise of simply explaining it to a friend, because you will subconsciously also understand why it matters in the end. So if you, again, the habits, if you start your day with a coffee, not directly after waking up, of course, 90 minutes after waking up, but with sports and water and sunlight, you signal to your body and your nervous system and also your brain, of course, that you have already done an important task and you are ready to tackle the day. So your mindset throughout the whole day will be different if you start your day with just lying in bed, scrolling on your phone. You signal to your mind certain subtle things, and it will determine the outcome of your evening. So just keep that in mind. What is discipline? The importance of the goal, why we pursue it, admitting that we experience problems and would like to solve them, the joy felt while traveling the path, adjusting circumstances to stay on the path more easily, understanding that time is limited. The social pressure in puberty and the professional pressure in young adulthood squeeze the passion out of us. We are taught that the only reason to do something is to somehow be rewarded for it. And the transactional nature of the world is inevitably overwhelms us, leaving us feeling lost or stuck. Everything is associated with sacrifices. Everything is associated with some costs. Nothing is pleasant or edifying all the time. So the question remains, what struggle or sacrifice are you willing to endure? Ultimately, it depends on our ability to hold onto something that matters to us, how we deal with the rough times, and how we get through the inevitable bad days. Thank you for reading or for listening in this case. I know this has been a lot. It's been quite like a podcast or something. But I hope you get something out of it. If you have any questions left, feel free to ask them in the comments, of course. If you want to do a deep dive on how to start your own personal side hustle or business, feel free to download my ebook. Just get it by signing up with your email. You can also ask questions. You can also ask per email. So if you get the first email, just answer to it. And if you want me to make a video about sort of the first steps you have to take after answering these questions here, how do you begin? Like, which softwares do you use? Like, who is your audience? How do you determine the product market fit? All these kind of basic steps that you have to think of first. I can do that as well. I will also give you a funnel in my email sequences. So it's like a step-by-step thing, how to structure your pages and stuff. It goes into like great detail and it's pretty good. I've also gathered it from past reads and videos. So yeah, just let me know what the future videos, what kind of future videos you want, and I will make sure to produce them. You can also subscribe to my Substack. It's all here for free. The knowledge I try to do my best to convey it in like in an entertaining way. And yeah, it's difficult, but I'm learning. So yeah, don't be too harsh. And other than that, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.